Rachel Marie Mellon Skemp was born in 1982 to parents Jeff and Amy Skemp in Melrose Park, Illinois. At the age of 3, her parents divorced and her father moved to Texas. Her mother later married a man by the name of Vincent Mellon, and the two had 2 children together. When Rachel was 8, her mom filed a restraining order against Vincent after he allegedly pushed her down the stairs and threatened Rachel. But the restraining order was later dropped and the couple reconciled. When Rachel was attending Bernard J. Ward Middle School, she was an honors student and lived with her family at 612 Melissa Drive in Bolingbrook, Illinois. She enjoyed science and was described by friends as someone with an old soul who was cheerful, silly, and fun. In 1995, at the age of 13, she ran away from home, leaving a note that stated she was scared that she would be blamed for something her younger siblings broke. She slept outside of her friend's house that night and then called her step-grandparents the next morning, who took her back home. On January 31, 1996, 13-year-old Rachel stayed home sick from school with a sore throat. Her stepfather, Vincent, was unemployed and was home that day as well. According to Vincent, while Rachel was taking a nap, he took their dog on a walk about 2:30 p.m. despite the wind chill being negative 20 degrees. He said the dog broke free of its collar to chase a rabbit, and he left it and returned home. A neighbor would return the dog to the home a couple hours later. When Rachel's younger sister came home from school, Rachel wasn't there. When their mom came home after 5 p.m., the police were notified and they showed up several hours later. They were familiar with the home as they had been called there multiple times in the past. Vincent claimed that the last time he saw Rachel, she was wrapped in a blue blanket in her bed asleep. However, it was discovered that the blue blanket and 2 pillows were missing from her bed, but nothing else was missing, not even her shoes. It was also noted that Vincent had scratches on his body, which he claimed he received while working on his car. Authorities conducted searches of the ground, air, and water using geothermal imaging and drones, but nothing was found. After Rachel's disappearance, her friends came forward to police to say she was seen crying by her locker at Warren Middle School on the day before she went missing. When her friends asked her what was wrong, she only said that she had a problem, but that she would take care of it herself. Police learned from Rachel's diary that her stepfather had tried to kiss her and touch her not long before she disappeared. They also found a book called Daddy Kisses and a steak knife hidden under her bed. 4 years after her disappearance, police obtained a warrant to get blood, semen, saliva, and hair samples from Vincent for a grand jury. He failed a polygraph test and repeatedly invoked his Fifth Amendment rights, and the grand jury investigation ended without any indictments being handed down. Sometime after Rachel went missing, Amy and Vincent briefly separated, but reconciled and moved to Tennessee and no longer cooperate with the Bolingbrook police. Her biological father stated that he would like to see justice for his daughter. As of May 2022, 26 years later, no one has ever been charged in Rachel's disappearance, and she's never been found. LeeAnna Suzanne Marie Warner was born in 1998 to Kaylin Whitaker and Chris Warner and went by the nickname Beaner. She was described as a loving, outgoing, and spunky tomboy that loved people, especially the elderly. In 2003, her family would move to the small town of Chisholm, Minnesota. A few months later, on June 14, 2003, 5-year-old Beaner and her mom went to a rummage sale, and on the way back, Beaner fell asleep. When they arrived home, her mother suggested she go lay down and finish napping, but she instead asked if she could walk to her friend's house nearby, where 3- and 4-year-old Janine and Melissa lived. She often walked the block and a half to their house to play with them, and her mother said okay, but that she needed to be home in 30 minutes. When she arrived, the family was not home and had gone to Walmart, so she began walking back home barefoot. 2 neighbors verified that they had seen her knocking on the door of her friend's house and walking away. But she never arrived home, and her mother became worried. She was last spotted walking on Southwest 2nd or 3rd Street. Kaylin sent one of Beaner's sisters to go fetch her, but she too found no one home and no sign of her sister. her mother and other neighbors began scouring the area for Beener and later called police when they couldn't find her. Local authorities embarked on a search, including expert tracker bloodhounds. 2 days were spent searching nearby garages, barns, sheds, and abandoned ore mines with no signs of Beener. Her scent was traced to nearby Longyear Lake, and child's shoe prints were also found, but they were believed to be from a previous visit she made with her mother. The water level in the lake was lowered, allowing them to thoroughly search it, but again, no signs of her were located. She was also described as being inclined to roam by both the local sheriff and Chisholm Mayor John Champa, who lived a block from her and her family. Not only was she known to wander alone, her survival instincts are said to be quite advanced for her age. Several witnesses reported seeing a white man walking around the neighborhood in his 30s with bleached blonde hair. He also allegedly had a dark tattoo of a star or sun on his right arm. Around the same time, a witness also reported a maroon and blue Cadillac driven by a black man in his early 20s or 30s with a bald or shaved head. There was also another white man seen in the area around the time of her disappearance with curly black hair, driving an older model rusty brown pickup truck. There were also thousands of people in town that night for the Rock the Range music festival at Iron World and the United Way Ride the Range motorcycle rally. One person of interest was Matthew James Curtis. He was arrested 2 months after Beener disappeared for possession of obscene materials involving children and lived in the proximity to Beener. Police interrogated him a number of times about whether or not he had anything to do with her disappearance. With a warrant, his truck was searched for her DNA, but none was found. The day before he was supposed to appear in local court for the recent charges, he was found dead in his truck at a gravel pit a few miles outside of Chisholm. According to authorities, he had committed suicide, but locals speculated that he could have been murdered, but there was no evidence to support this. Another person of interest was Joseph Edward Duncan III, who was well known for kidnapping 9-year-old Dylan and 8-year-old Shasta Groney after murdering their mother, stepfather, and brother. He sexually assaulted both Dylan and Shasta before killing Dylan. Fortunately, Shasta was rescued. He would become part of Beener's case when authorities were going through his computer and found an encrypted document that made reference to her disappearance. He also wrote about her in his online diary in 2004, saying that he was afraid he would be blamed for her disappearance. However, authorities were unable to find anything concrete to connect him to the case, and he hadn't even been in the area at the time of her disappearance. Soon after she went missing, her parents told investigators that in the weeks before her disappearance, she was playing with a case of Barbies and Barbie's clothes that they had never seen before. When they asked her about them, she stated that she had been given them by a little old lady. A week before she vanished, at nearly midnight, she packed a suitcase with all of her favorite things and told them that she wanted to go live at her new family's house. Then one night, they found her asleep in her closet, and she said that she was afraid monsters outside her window were going to get her. Over the years, the police have received more than 1,700 leads. However, with very little evidence to go off, they have never had a concrete suspect, and as of May 2022, this case remains unsolved. Stevie Danielle Bates was born in 1992 to Vivian Bates. She attended Bronx High School of Science in Bronx, New York, and earned a full scholarship to the University of Arizona, but decided not to attend and instead enrolled at Hunter College in Manhattan. She was described as an intelligent person with a vibrant personality. In the fall of 2011, she was involved in the social movement and protest Occupy Wall Street and lived in a tent in a city park with other protesters for 3 months. During this time in her life, at the age of 19, she spoke to her mother daily, sometimes multiple times per day. However, her mother stated that Stevie's personality began to change after 2 of her friends suddenly died. She bleached and dreadlocked her hair, neglected her personal hygiene, and became distant from her family, but seemed to improve some after she enrolled at Hunter College. In 2012, Stevie decided not to enroll in classes for the spring semester. She also broke up with her boyfriend, and then in April, she and 3 Occupy Wall Street friends set out on a cross-country trip to Northern California. Somewhere on the trip between Virginia and Arkansas, she lost her phone and had to use one of her friends' phones to keep in contact with her mother. Around April 23rd, Stevie told her mother that their car had broken down in North Carolina and they would be taking a bus to Arkansas. Once they arrived in Arkansas, Stevie decided she didn't want to continue the trip, and on April 26, she boarded a Manhattan-bound Greyhound in Hot Springs, Arkansas to return home alone. Her mother last spoke with her on April 27th at 7:52 p.m. when she borrowed someone's phone during a layover bus stop in Pennsylvania. The next morning, April 28th, she was seen at 8:51 a.m. on video surveillance footage at the New York Port Authority station, coming up the escalator and walking downtown on 8th Avenue. She had told her mother that when she arrived in New York City that she planned to stop in Brooklyn to meet up with her ex-boyfriend, Brandon Klosterman, and retrieve some of her belongings at the property that he'd been squatting at next to a cemetery before coming home. Her last Facebook message was between her and Brandon. Brandon claims she never arrived to see him in the Flatbush neighborhood of Brooklyn, and he hadn't seen her since she left to go to California. At this point, she was never seen again. Suspicion quickly fell on him, however, due to being an alleged heroin addict that often squatted in abandoned homes. After several attempts of trying to file a missing persons report with New York City Police and Port Authority Police, they told her mother that her daughter was 19 and maybe didn't want to be found, but her mother knew this wasn't true because they talked daily. Her mother was constantly told that she had to file the report where her mother lived in Yonkers, which she did. However, Stevie had not yet moved to Yonkers and had been living with her older sister, Sharina Bates, while her mother and family completed renovations on a new home in Yonkers. Her mother stated she had difficulty reporting her daughter missing because no area wanted to claim jurisdiction over her case. On May 25, 2012, her mother spoke with New York City Police and was told that Stevie is not coming up in New York City's database as a missing person, so she refiled a report with the 77th Precinct in Brooklyn because that's where she was last seen on video footage and her last known residence was Brooklyn. Her mother has been searching tirelessly and endlessly for her daughter and was reportedly given the runaround when attempting to report her daughter missing, leading to possible missed crucial video surveillance. It would be a month after she went missing before Brandon was questioned. Sadly, on September 18, 2020, over 8 years later, skeletal remains were found wrapped in a blanket by construction workers excavating an abandoned building on Cypress Avenue in Glendale, Queens. The remains were identified 5 months later as belonging to Stevie. Some speculate that she could have died of a possible accidental overdose covered up by the ex. However, those that knew her reported that she was not known to use drugs, despite surrounding herself with drug users. Another theory is that she met with foul play in the shady area before making it to meet the ex. An unidentified person released a video of her taken a couple weeks before she went missing. She is on a train around April 11th, and it's unknown if she knew the person was recording her or not. It is believed that the male sitting next to her is her boyfriend at the time, Brandon Klosterman, but that has not been proven, and as of April 2022, this case remains unsolved. Mary Jo Lee Long was born in 1964 in Minnesota. She later had twin siblings, Dawn and Sean, that she adored and helped care for. From age 6 to 12, Mary Jo lived with foster parents John and Charlotte Bloom. She was described as a sweet child who was very close to them. At some point, she returned to the care of her mother and was living in Austin, Minnesota. She attended Austin High School, but at the age of 17, she left home without her mother's permission and somehow traveled to Gardena, California to live with her father and brother Butch in an RV in the 13,700 block of Alma. She also enrolled in Gardena High School. In 1980, she went back to Austin, Minnesota for Christmas, returned to California, and then disappeared approximately 2 months later. However, no missing persons report was filed in California, but her mother filed a report on February 24, 1988 in Minnesota, 7 years after she was last seen. She stated that she wanted her re-entered as missing, but there was no original missing persons report. Therefore, either she never reported her missing prior to 1988, or law enforcement never officially filed a report. At some point, a photo featuring Mary and a boyfriend in California around 1981 or 1982 would raise questions about the identity of the boyfriend. Her family and authorities ask if anyone recognizes him in the photo to come forward. He is not a suspect, but his identity may help answer questions in the investigation by the Austin Police Department. Her mother would die in a car accident in 1989, a year after she reported her daughter missing. Mary's photo has been age progressed to the age of 52, but very few details are available about her case, and those that are available are vague. Her surviving family members are still working tirelessly to find answers and fill in the blanks and have more questions than answers. Some family members have even given their DNA in hopes that an unidentified person can be matched to them, but as of May 2022, Mary has never been found and this case remains unsolved.